We have three, and two
Right.
of them are rescues. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
love dogs.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome everybody to Faith, Family, and Friends. I apologize for not being able to go live tonight. My guest tonight is Margo Guernsey. Am I saying your last name right?
You are, yeah.
He's zooming us from a favorite place of mine, Beantown, Boston, Massachusetts, near Boston, and from the Western Mass area. So a fellow New Englander, movie director, a documentarian. Margo, you have your own website. I have it over here on my other account, a computer travel, timetravelproductions.com. I'll mention that again a few times. But for I don't know how long, well, maybe we'll talk about that in a moment. But you've been directing, producing films of a documentary kind of style. How long has it been since you've been doing that? And then we can talk about this new one you have out.
Fantastic. Yes, great to be here and great to be talking with you tonight. So I've been making documentary films as an independent producer since 2012.
Okay.
I actually was a union organizer after college for a while, so my films, all of my films, including this one, have a very grassroots style. So I came up bringing people together. Everybody has a voice, and that's really how all of these films have been made.
That's great. We've done a few documentaries in our podcast, and one that I can remember, I think of the name, and it was about a painting down in North Carolina. Maybe I'll think of the name of the gentleman and he did it sort of like you, grassroots, and it actually brought the community together. There was poverty and homelessness, and the project that the church was doing, it was a fresco, actually. He brought the community in to help with that, and community members got to be part of the fresco that was painted by this artist, and the documentarian filmed the whole thing. What an amazing film. I wish I could remember him. He's a graduate of Asheville, North Carolina school there, and it's in Asheville. But at any rate, we've had some really wonderful ones, and I just love true stories, nonfiction, because truth is stranger than fiction, right?
That's right.
So tell us about your new project. Tamara from Biscuit Media asked if we would like to have you on board, and I'm so glad that we did. It's called Philadelphia 11. And how did that come into your purview? Did you go chase that idea, or you knew about it, or did somebody approach you?
A little bit of both, but I was not looking for this film. I'm very much a history buff. I also love truth. I think there's so much for us to learn, and it's always so interesting. And I even have a master's degree in history. I'm very much a nerd.
That's awesome.
And I always sort of have my eye out for historical topics, but beyond that, this is not a film I was planning to make.
Right.
I actually, even if you see the trailer, you'll see the Reverend Carter Hayward. And I was talking with her about something completely unrelated. And I didn't know who she was. And people who have been following her for years can't believe that I called her without having a clue who I was talking to. But so she figured out, I think, pretty quickly that I didn't do my research. Big check against me. So she had to tell me her story a little bit in this phone call. And as I was listening, I kept thinking, I cannot believe I did not know this. I consider myself a student of American history. I was a union organizer. I consider myself a student of the civil rights movement. I grew up in a town. I actually grew up in a town where one of the first women ordained as an Episcopal priest was the rector of the church. But I think that's why it was normalized for me.
Yes.
I'm not Episcopalian, but I would see her around town. It's a small town with her collar. So I didn't think it was a thing, that it was a problem. And so anyway, long story short, that conversation, it was almost a call. So I don't have a call to the priesthood, but it was almost like a call to tell this story.
Yes.
And that was in 2012. It was a while before we started filming, but that was the beginning.
So give our folks a background of Philadelphia 11. I'm not a history buff. I like history, but I've got so many irons in the fire. My brother is, and hopefully he's watching or will watch when we put this back out from back in Maine where I'm from. But 1974, this is the 50th anniversary when this occurred. So maybe you can give the background of the history of this, and then back to how you got involved and began to film.
Yep. So in the 1960s and early 1970s, a number of mainline Christian denominations started to allow women in leadership in ministry. The Episcopal Church did not. There was a long, sort of prolonged efforts a more political lobbying style to change the rules and regulations that failed at two different votes at two different national conventions. And in 1974, a group of women said, "This is enough. We are called by God. It has nothing to do with what these institutional rules. They have actually nothing to do with our call."
Yeah.
And they found some bishops who were willing to ordain them. And they found a church, the Church of the Advocate in North Philly, who was willing to, quite frankly, take great risk. It was the only church willing to do it.
Wow.
To hold the service.
Mhm.
Up to estimates range up to 2,000 people packed the church. Back then the news was all, we didn't have cable, so it was all ABC, NBC, NBC, and they were all there. It was international news, and those ordinations then so then we had 11 women ordained priests, whether you're a priest forever, as they say. And then sort of the story of the film then carries it through the next few years and the movement to make it official and quote unquote legal, and so that more women could be ordained.
And that brave act by that particular priest in Philadelphia to help these women, it caught fire and maybe changed the minds and views of those in the denomination, so that later on they were more open and accepting.
Well, that is the story in the film, and many would say it's taken years and still unfolding. I mean, there are still Episcopal churches and many other sections of the Christian denomination that are, Southern Baptists changed their rules last summer to not allow women in ministry. So it's very much, I think, there's still a lot of minds being convinced, to put it one way, but that was the beginning. So those three bishops ordained those women, and then I don't want to give away the whole film, but next year there were 4 more women who were ordained in that illicit way in Washington D.C., and so it was a movement, right? And it grew.
You can't stop a movement.
That's right.
Real quick, and then we're going to remind our viewers tonight where they can see this now is at select theaters throughout the country. And I see on the website too that there are ways that you can host a screening, and maybe we could talk about that for a moment. But when is the date where it comes out? Is it this?
So select theaters, we actually already opened in Memphis last week to a packed theater.
Oh, great.
Next Tuesday on the 14th, there's another 7 cities up, and then another, I think, 5 on the 21st. So it's being rolled out slowly. And as you said, anyone can host a screening, and we have a sliding scale to do so because everyone should be able to host a screening. So if for any reason, there's a way to reach out on the website. If the license fee is too high, just reach out to us. We really want anyone to be able to host a screening.
I would think that besides being in these select theaters, that it may be something a church, the leadership, if they're inclined to open that can of worms, and they know their congregation, it would, you could watch the film and then have hopefully a healthy civil conversation about this subject, which is hard to find nowadays because nobody wants to listen to each other. But I think I'm just thinking out loud myself, because we're pastoring here in Fulton, and we're actually in the bowels of the church where in the gym next to me, we do films once a month. So there might be a possibility, but who's carrying the film for you? Like in terms of a company that's putting it in the theaters?
So we're working with Tuckman Media to go into the theaters. Okay. We're working with Good Docs for educational distribution. And we're working on some other, nothing else is signed, but we're working on more to come later this year for distribution opportunities. Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow. One of the documentarians that we had interviewed a while ago, Ghost Mountain, James Tang, a wonderful story about his dad's survival in the second killing fields of Vietnam. He's actually beginning to put the book and the movie into colleges, and people watch that. It's a 30-minute documentary. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. James is a wonderful guy, and his father's story is amazing. He lives in Connecticut, but it really is good to put that educational piece to a lot of these documentaries, because I think we learn if we could discuss and take what we saw and being able to kind of spill ourselves out about it and look at each piece kind of individually, because there's a lot of information.
That's right.
I know you don't want to give away the film, but let's go to how from 2012 to just today or next week to next Tuesday when it comes out in the theaters. the
Yeah,
process.
the process. Yeah, this was a film. This is why I mentioned at the beginning the grassroots nature of the
Yeah.
storytelling. This is a film that is a very compelling story and was hard to finance. So a lot of the traditional film funders loved it but weren't ready to commit. And
Mm,
so we, a number of different times, went out and started saying that to folks who we knew, just casually, and to folks who we knew loved the story and thought it was really important to tell the story.
mhm.
And we kept getting people wanting to make donations and wanting to help. And so ultimately, the film was crowdfunded. I mean,
Oh,
that is
great.
where most of the money came in through multiple crowdfunding. We had a group that would meet monthly. We sort of started this thing called Tell the Story.
Uh-huh.
We have over 1,200 donors, probably more like 1,400,
Yeah.
that really came together to tell the story. And also large groups of people who gave us feedback on different rough cuts. It was really a collaborative effort all the way through.
That's amazing. And so when you talk about the grassroots and you're reporting and letting people tell their story instead of you framing it necessarily, allowing it to come forth organically, uh, that process of you and maybe your team going to individuals who may not be alive but had family who are some of these 11, how did that kind of work out?
Yeah, we really wanted those 11 to tell their own story. Had the bishops have passed away, we would have included their voices if they were
Sure.
still living.
Yeah.
And not all of the 11 are living. So it's
Yeah.
those of the 11 who are still living who tell their own story.
Yeah.
And so we both interviewed them so that it would be their voice, but we also showed them various rough cuts of the film for their feedback,
Yeah.
so that they could say, yeah, that's good, but you forgot this, or why'd you cut that out? So it was, it was a collaborative effort through the edit.
That's great. It's almost like writing a piece of poetry or story. I teach English, so one of the things I did this year with a couple of groups is we did an oral story. So we make it up on the fly, and they help each other form the plot, the conflict. So it sort of sounds like it because when you're sharing, you're in the moment emotionally, and I'm sure that there were some pieces they forgot. So that was great thinking on your part. I'm sure as you've done documentaries through the years since you've done this in 2012, to notice that. And because when we work together, we get more done. We don't miss the pieces if it's just one or two.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So next Tuesday in Memphis, did you say, or it already came up?
Memphis already went. So
Okay.
Tuesday we're up in Atlanta.
Okay.
I might have to pull up the list, but let's try it. Atlanta, Syracuse. Let me pull up the list. Hold
Sure.
on.
And while you're
Maybe.
looking for it, any places in Michigan?
Yes, Ann Arbor.
Okay, I'm gonna make sure.
Yes, there are ticket links on the website.
Okay.
They're standard, they're not expensive. They're your standard, go to the movies 11, 12. I don't remember, it's a little different in each city, but it's your standard price, ticket
Yeah,
price.
pull that up. Theatrical.
Yeah. So
Very
May
easy
14th,
drop down menu. Okay.
Atlanta, Georgia, Portland, Maine, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Syracuse, New York, Salt Lake City, Utah, and Austin, Texas.
Awesome. Wow, that's great. We highly recommend it. I know that people will watch this. I have friends on all sides, theologically speaking. And this is my personal opinion. I think only God and Jesus, the Holy Spirit, can determine who calls you to ministry. And it's sad that we, as a Christian people, let's just say, because even though you and I may think the same about women ought to be ministers, there are others that aren't. So in some sense, we kind of share that guilt or shame, and we work together to try to put light on that. But it really is a difficult polemic or defense to defend and to say that they don't belong when we know very well the first evangelists were women. And even in the Old Testament, when things were a bit stricter, even when the men were doodling and just, heads in the sand, weren't active, God raised Deborah up and so many others, Esther.
That's right.
My goodness. I mean, Mordecai, who's to know you came to such a time as this, he said to her. So there's so many examples. And I just think it's been time. And thankfully, people like these Philadelphia 11 and others in other groups and denominations are breaking out of that. I think that we just need to listen to each other more and recognize the dynamics that are going on. That if a lady has a story to tell and she wants to tell about her Savior and share the gospel and shepherd other people, she has God to, to speak for it. So if others don't go along, but thankfully there were some men back in 1974, and that particular pastor in Philadelphia, right, who said, "I'm going to stand by your side." And well, we're looking forward to a great opening, and maybe we could stay in touch through Biscuit Media or connect with me and see how it's going, maybe. And I want to keep promoting this. We do a daily devotional here at our church in the morning, and besides sharing the Word of God, I often share what we're doing on Faith, Family, and Friends, things that are going on. Pray for the tornadoes that are crazy in the Midwest. And we had a few last night here in Michigan. I've never experienced such. I was down here in a safe place. My wife was next door in the basement of our parsonage with the dogs. But I kind of think it's exciting. I don't want anybody to get hurt of the destruction. But tornadoes are great proof of God's power, I think. So, but at any rate, Margo, let's stay in touch. And I won't say good luck, good providence on the disseminating of this film. Is there any chance that it will be out on DVD and maybe like on Amazon so that people can see it instant video, Prime Video?
Yeah, that is what we're working on. I mean, we would, it's very hard for independent film right now because the streamers just aren't picking them up the way they used to. But we think we're hoping that in the fall it will be on Amazon so that it's more widely available. That's the goal.
That's great. And so do you have projects ahead that you're looking to get into, or you're going to take a break from this one and see what God brings you?
I actually am working on something else, and I'll share that it involves being in Michigan. Yeah, we're working on, I say we because it's with another filmmaker, but we're working on a film about election officials. We're profiling election officials, and it's Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Florida. So you can, it'll be on my website and other places.
Well, we'll look that up. So your website once again, because we're in between Battle Creek and Kalamazoo. So look us up. You're in the area, especially if it's the summer. Before we head to Maine, we'll take you out to lunch. My wife.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah. But Margo Guernsey, folks, her website is www.timetravelproductions.com, and then you can find the website for this film, The Philadelphia 11. It looks fabulous. I love the photography on the front. That's www.philadelphia11film.com. Make sure you get out to see it. And I did find that button that you were looking at, and it does come right up, I think, on theater and where it's being shown. Ann Arbor here in Michigan, which is not too far from where we are. So, folks, if you got nothing to do in the next few weeks, check out where that is and go support this film. It's an amazing film. Thank you, Margo.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Okay, God bless. Let's stay in touch.
Sounds good. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.